accounts for about 30% of the infrastructure of the whole world.
Couldn't get on Zoom, don't get on Seller Central.
Customers were not able to purchase on Amazon. We then saw that there was a significant drop off in orders.
About how reliable Amazon was while we were in the middle of an outage. So that was fun.
Hey team, welcome to Upside, where we talk all things digital and marketplaces. And today we talk AWS outage. Let's go. Right, before we get into the episode, let's get a little bit personal. We found out that over 80% of you are swingers. We didn't believe it ourselves. I couldn't believe it. Zamir couldn't believe it. But yes, you're swingers. How do we know? Because you won't commit. You won't commit to us. Hit subscribe. It'll make our day, makes things even better, and we'll be one big happy family. All right, team, welcome to Upside, and I am pumped about today's session. We are talking AWS outage, and you will have heard about it unless you're living in a rock or you are living the digital free life. Great, in which case, thanks for listening to our podcast. But I'm super pumped about today's session because I have one of my best friends ever, Danu, who is on the session with us. And Danu happens to be, number one, probably the most respected digital guy and AI cybersecurity specialists from New Zealand. Number one. Two, he is the CEO and founder of Rush Digital, who happened to win an award literally just a few minutes ago. Got announced that they are one of the coolest places to work in New Zealand, which is one of the coolest places to live. So, hey, well done. And I'm super pumped to have him on the pod with us today. So, Danu, welcome to Upside.
Thanks, guys. Thank you both for having me and such a lovely intro. What did I do to deserve that?
Just a whole lot of awesomeness. So, all right, here's how I was thinking we can talk about this. Let's give a little bit of light background as to what happened on Monday. And then, Zamir, if you saw our LinkedIn, we have found something interesting, and I want Zamir to expand on it. But we want to get Danu's legendary insight and expertise into what we've spotted. So, right. Zamir and Danu, do you want to just talk about what happened on Monday? Zamir, do you want to just kind of high level it, and Zamir and Danu?
Right, actually, I was thinking, Danu, why don't you tell us from your side what actually happened? Because we've heard lots of technical speak. Please dumb it down for us.
ChatGPT, I'm a 10-year-old.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was at a conference yesterday, and the keynote was being given by the Amazon country head or regional head about how reliable Amazon was while we were in the middle of an outage. So that was fun. And yeah, the Amazon crew were obviously on fire, but they were fantastic. I have to say, Amazon handled the outage quite well and communicated quite well. But basically, Amazon Web Services is one of the services that Amazon as a conglomerate provides. And we call Amazon a hyperscaler because they're so huge. And Amazon Web Services is a mechanism where you can outsource all of the hard work of running all the computers that run most people's websites and mobile apps and things like that. And because it's a hyperscaler, it actually accounts for about 30% of the infrastructure of the whole world. Damn. Of all the websites. So yeah, exactly. It's literally, I mean, just on the numbers, it's literally a leg of a tripod effectively.
Yeah, a chunk of the internet. Right there.
Yeah. So what happened is one of the legs got loose and kind of fell out. And what happened is, the tripod was less effective for the day. But just covering off a little bit more technical, getting a bit more information from Amazon, they said that a service called DNS, which, there's an inside joke in technology. If you don't know what caused the problem, you blame DNS. But this time apparently it was DNS.
It was DNS.
Yeah, and it happened to be in one of the largest and most one of the regions or areas where Amazon hosts a lot of this physical hardware. It's the oldest region, and it's also the region that supports Amazon.com and a lot of US traffic. So our reliance on a lot of US services like Roblox, I don't know if you guys play or not. I don't think it's a great game. I don't know what the deal is, but it made the headlines. And yeah, things like that were sort of taken.
Duolingo, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, exactly right.
Zoom. We walked into the office. Zoom was out. Couldn't get on Zoom. Don't get on Seller Central. So all that kind of stuff was like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's funny. it's just one of those things you don't realize how much stuff runs on
Yeah.
all of these, US tech giants. Starting to see headlines about, countries, especially the way the world is going, talking about are we too reliant
Setting up
on
their own.
globalized services in general? So it's a lot of interesting conversation around that right now.
But the
Interesting.
truth is, like these they have huge reliability, right? In most cases, they've got the sort of resilience that most companies just couldn't afford to have. That's the
Absolutely.
reason why they exist.
Yeah, and it's one of the biggest benefits of using a service like this is, they do actually handle failure quite silently and passively. Most of the time, stuff is failing. You just don't notice it because they've done such a good job of all of the engineering. This hypothetical tripod is made of Kevlar. It's got like mil spec rating. It's waterproof, and it has a whole bunch of extra legs. So something really significant must have happened in a pretty linchpin area inside their infrastructure for it to go out this badly.
You make a note there where you say like Amazon's also stored there. And we did have impact in terms of Seller Central. So sellers couldn't access Seller Central for part of the morning at the same time. But actually the customer facing website seemed to have zero issues when this initial outage happened in the morning. So they must have further resilience built in, I presume.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really depends a lot on which particular services inside Amazon you are reliant on. One particular service called DynamoDB. It's a very modern database. So what you will actually see is that the sites that went down tended to be more modern services. So
Mm.
Amazon.com has been around obviously for a long time, and I would
Yeah.
imagine that its reliance on some of these new services may not have been as significant, or Amazon itself, because it's such a huge business, would have architected its own architecture on top of AWS to make sure that if AWS went out, um, it could still serve traffic, because obviously there's a lot of dollars at play there. It's not
Mm.
uncommon. We do have this concept called multi-cloud, and it is designed, predominantly to avoid this kind of reliance. Most customers choose to use a mix of on-prem and which is run your own machines, and a managed service like Amazon. But some customers do pick between like Microsoft and Amazon and run
So you
half
could
their
have like
infrastructure on
multiple
one.
providers, like a Google
Yeah,
and a Amazon AWS. You
yeah.
can do that.
It's not uncommon for mission critical systems, that stuff that's like life and death, like call center
Mm.
dispatch for like frontline
Yeah.
workers and things like that. That would be a pretty common pattern to implement.
Interesting.
Presumably, also, if only one region went down, then there were other regions on AWS that were unaffected. Is it possible to build it in so that you're sort of like you spread that risk across multiple regions?
Yeah, interestingly, when you're building cloud services, and when you're architecting cloud services, there's this agreement, and Amazon and most cloud providers actually say this outright to the developers. It's a shared responsibility. So some services are entirely Amazon's responsibility, but there's actually a lot of services that are considered shared responsibility. And that means that it's up to you, the developer, to implement redundancy, to implement backup procedures. Amazon will provide the nuts and bolts for you to be able to do that, but it's ultimately your responsibility. So sites that went down probably had some missing components of that, possibly. And the ones that stayed up that were still reliant on that region, we might not know if they were um, architected in a particularly resilient way or just avoided those services.
And they just didn't kind of like put it in. So they kind of like didn't build on the redundancy that they should have.
That's potential, yeah. I guess we'll never know because they'd have to kind of tweet.
Yeah, some tech heads are gonna lose their head. But okay, so got fixed, and reports came back that okay, this is cool, we got it under control, it's all back to normal. Um, you can jump back on Zoom and chat to your buddies. But Zamir, you spotted something else that came up late in the afternoon that also got picked up by the media.
Yeah, so we saw reports in the evening between sort of like 4 and 7 p.m. This was confirmed on BBC and The Guardian, where lots of customers were seeing were not able to purchase on Amazon. They were getting failure notices, and that people are posting these. So when we came back in the next day, we went through the data. We were really curious how many orders we may have lost in the morning, and we're quite pleased to see that orders were exactly in line with where we anticipated them to be. However, we then saw that there was a significant drop off in orders in the evening. So between 4 and 7 p.m., orders were down 50% on average across those 3 hours. Really curious in your thoughts as to why that might be the case.
Yeah, that one's an interesting because it's kind of weird that it wasn't all orders stopped. It's kind of like 50% of orders. So yeah, the symptoms are quite strange. If I had to guess, it would be something to do with Amazon having to either verify that nothing got lost during the outage, or in order to help out AWS rate limiting orders through potentially, because the outage that some of the services that were involved in the outage, it seems like Amazon haven't said this outright, but it seems like triggered a whole bunch of automatic restoration features inside AWS erroneously. And so I think maybe it becomes that like snowball effect. It's kind of like a runaway recovery that isn't really needed. So it's possible that it was rate limiting. That's probably Occam's razor, the simplest explanation.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that there's probably other ones that are a little bit more creative, maybe some corporate
Yeah.
espionage.
Because this is where I kind of like thinking about it. Because okay, when it happened in the morning, so it's 9 a.m. and I was like, oh man, I bet you this is a cyber attack. Like I 100% this is a cyber attack. And then all the things come in that no, there's no cyber attack. I was like, WhatsApping you, and you're like, nah, if this thing is not, this is legit. We're all good. But then, like, okay, so my whole thing is, and this is okay, conspiracy theorist in me. Virginia also houses the Pentagon and all these other like sensitive, and we know that like that was one of their first like AWS's first clients, right? So that the theorist in me is kind of like, is it Occam's razor?
Yeah,
What do
I
you
mean, look,
think?
I understand jumping to the conclusion as well, because it's not like it's uncommon. We've
Yeah,
had petabyte scale kind of DDoS attacks. It's quite a
yeah,
regular thing actually.
yeah,
And I when you WhatsApp me, it was like, yeah, it's possible,
yeah.
distinct possibility. But I guess trusting that Amazon, because Amazon, especially in the
Mm.
EU, they're bound by disclosure laws that are quite punitive. So if they don't
Really
disclose that they had a significant cyber incident, there's probably some legal ramifications that mean that they the
interesting to
it'd
know
be
that.
very hard for them to put out a statement, which they have said, that saying
This
that
is
this
not malicious,
yeah. So that's kind of what made me like, they're probably
right?
not willing to lose money over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah. But I
Is it
mean,
fair, I was going to say, is it fair to say that in previous because these things have happened in the past, initially they'll state something like DNS, but then they may come back later and revise and go
Blame
hash.
DNS, as you said.
yeah, I
I'm
mean,
presuming this is what you said, they have to. So
yeah, that definitely used to be the case, because diagnosis was kind of hard with cyber attacks. But where we've sort of gotten with all of the internet's infrastructure is that the scale at which these cloud operators operate at, and the resilience that's built into their services, means that you used to have to throw the kitchen sink at trying to take out one of these services. Now you have to throw the kitchen at it to really make a dent, because they're
okay,
serving so much traffic. They've got a whole bunch of cyber resilience built in. When you've got service providers like Cloudflare and Akamai handling petabytes and petabytes a second of traffic,
What's a
um,
petabyte? Is that like the
it's
next
like
step after terabyte?
uh, 12 zeros, 16 zeros, something like that. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's more than I can count.
so presumably if and there's a big if around this, so but if this was malicious and if it wasn't an accident, this isn't like just a kid in his bedroom kind of doing this. This would have to be a fairly serious player,
Yeah,
presumably.
look, if we want to just speculate, why not?
Typically speaking,
Speculation's fun. But like, no, look, we actually don't 100% know, right? Like we're sort of trusting Amazon on this. There's
yeah,
probably, it's not unheard of to, say something publicly that, if there's something in the nation's interest, or something that, certain governments don't want people finding out loud. We're sort of in a weird time in the world where that might be
yeah,
a possibility.
yeah,
Yeah, it could be seen as something like that, avoiding egg on face. And or also just not wanting to throw geopolitical imbalance out, right? Because
Yeah.
if you do point out that you're being attacked by one of these nation states,
Someone else.
it's going
We
to
don't
come
feel
with
safe.
some retaliation or some kind of public backlash. So it could
Yeah.
be avoided.
That's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
I think also from our perspective, just to say, because you mentioned this kind of like nation state side and like national security and everything. From our side and from most of our listeners, it's a lot more trivial than that. It's just like we're coming up to Q4, and if Amazon goes down over Black Friday, Cyber Monday,
That's what I was thinking. I was like, man, does this happen like in a month from now?
Yeah,
right?
it'd be pretty bad, right?
Yeah, I not for nation states, but
Yeah,
for
not
personally
nations,
for a lot
but, like
for a lot of small businesses, this would be significant. This would be dramatic.
if we put in the tinfoil hat on,
Yeah.
jokingly, leverage is what any cyber attack is all about, right? Whether it's a criminal gang, whether it's a nation state, where it's a script kiddie, it's all about getting some form of leverage.
Yeah.
So again, like the symptoms of it, they do line up with a cyber attack. The reason I'm not suggesting it is a cyber attack is simply because Amazon said it wasn't.
It wasn't.
But it would, if you were to construct a cyber attack around this, you could form some leverage and hold some online stores ransom to, no traffic.
I was going to say we've just seen this in the UK. We've seen some major retailers have experienced this. Jaguar Land Rover is still going through this, and they're saying that this could be the most expensive, at least known in history. So and those are obviously big businesses that are hit
Interesting.
really hard. But this would be a way of hitting a lot of small business, a lot of businesses who are selling through a single platform. I guess collectively be hit.
So that is that kind of the message overall, though. Like diversification is needed, whether it's at a grand scale in terms of like cloud computing, but down to like businesses.
Yeah, I mean, there's two strategies, right? Like, if I was running an online store, I would just make sure I have a really good cyber insurance policy that includes business continuity and BR and that kind of thing, right? So if I miss out on XYZ orders for a couple of days, I'm reimbursed through insurance. That's just probably the easiest option, because the amount of engineering required for like a multi-cloud or
Set up
maybe
your own
even
service
homing your infrastructure is probably not worth it, right?
Mm.
Yeah, so I would recommend smaller businesses just really carefully look at how they're insured for resilience.
Yeah.
Not just as a cyber attack, because obviously I think people are waking up to the fact that this is core infrastructure for their entire business. So it's more about business continuity and disaster recovery as much as it is about cyber protection.
Interesting.
Danu, the podcast is called Upside because we like to look on the positive side and come up. So I just reflecting on this. This is a warning and has shown all of us what could happen. But equally, I imagine Amazon's going to have learned a lot of lessons from this. Whether it's an internal issue or it was an external one, they'll have learned, and will almost certainly it's in their interest to ensure that this doesn't occur again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, again, just hats off to Amazon. I think they've handled it great. Communicative, lots of messaging out to the key accounts.
It's like 10 minutes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I was in New Zealand at a conference, and I, within seconds, had a clear picture from Amazon themselves about what was happening. They were very transparent. They didn't hide from any of the issues. They were very clear about where their services would and what was being done. And their estimated times for fixes, they pretty much nailed them. Which is always great. But they will run a postmortem. This is one of the things that's very inside the culture of a lot of these infrastructure providers, and they kind of need to, because customers do trust them with their data. They do trust them with a lot of their business needs. So the right thing to do here is run a postmortem, and you can bet that's being fed back into their next round of engineering and resilience. There'll probably be some real interesting continuous conversations about DNS, because it's such an old technology. It's a bunch of text files that are propagated around the world, and it's such a single point of failure for this infrastructure. We use the internet today in so many different ways that couldn't have possibly been imagined when it was conceived.
I'm guessing that they always it's always been described to me as it's like the telephone directory of the internet. It's like we've all moved away from phone books and the internet for some reason still using one, right?
Yeah, exactly that. And yeah, we run all these really complicated AI things that mimic the human brain, and then something as simple as a sort of almost, I think it's nearly 50 years old piece of technology can sort of bring down the use of or access to these technologies.
That's cool. Well, I think we wrap it there, guys. But Danu, thank you so much for joining us. It is super late in New Zealand as you record this. And the other thing I love is I'm not the only one who sounds different on the pod today. So,
I'm
extra
the odd
good.
one out today.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. I had fun.
So thanks so much,
Loved
man.
having
Stay
you
on and hopefully have you back.
See you guys. Bye.
Alrighty, one love.
All right.